know about Vishnu. He was an educated person like his brother. And so, according to this verse, he found out, of course, he had to first find where Vishnu is so that he could find him. And how did he find out where Vishnu was? Did anyone catch that? But how? How did he find out? From Narada Muni. This Narada Muni. Again, he wants to fight Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Then he asks Narada, where is he? Narada tells him, he's down there, picking up the earth from the depths of the ocean. And so off he goes to find the Supreme Personality of Godhead and fight it, wanting actually to kill it. Wanting to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he's known as Ajita, one who can't be conquered, one who has never been conquered, one who has never lost a battle. What was the battle that Vishnu lost? Shiva lost battles, Indra lost battles, everyone lost battles, but Vishnu doesn't happen to him. What's interesting, there's an example that they give, and Prabhupada mentioned it quite a few times. That is the example of the rope and the snake. Do you know that example, rope and the snake?
Yeah.
So, you want to say it?
No, so they say that this is an illusion. Actually, we understood rope as a snake. And it actually is a rope, but we are out of illusion. We are understanding as a snake.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Prabhupada give a counter, answer that.
But how do they, with that example, how do they address the problem that they claim? Right, they claim that there is no multiplicity, there's just one existence of one being. And yet, we are obviously, look everywhere, you see different people, different individuals. So they say that that's illusion. And to explain that illusion, they give the example of the rope and the snake. And how does that example of the rope and the snake illustrate their point? Then we'll discuss Prabhupada's counteracting.
Not sure about this in this context,
yes.
How we are individually experiencing with the rope.
Okay. Prabhupada writes about it in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, for example, quite elaborately, mentions again in Chaitanya Charitamrita in different places. So sometimes when a person sees a rope on the road, sometimes mistakes it for a snake. And then the person actually does not see the rope, but actually sees the snake, even though it's looking at the rope and it's experiencing fear. I don't know if you ever experienced something like this. I have not had that experience with the rope, but with the bush. I could swear it was a bear. But it wasn't a bear, it was just a bush. So similarly, they say that what we're experiencing, right now we're looking at the world and we're experiencing multiplicity. There's you, there's him, there's him, there's him. There's so many different entities here. But they say that's illusion. Just like when someone looks at the rope and sees a snake. In reality, it's just a rope. But you see a snake and then by illusion, by the power of illusion, you see snakes. So they say that we're looking at Brahman. That Brahman is looking at Brahman. And because of the illusion, is experiencing multiplicity. Just like when you look at rope and you experience a snake, even though there is no snake. So they say that Brahman looks at Brahman and experiences illusion. And because of that illusion, Brahman is perceiving multiplicity. And then the Vaishnavas ask the question, wait a second, how can Brahman be an illusion? Brahman is the embodiment of truth, of knowledge. How can Brahman be an illusion? And that's the answer, that's the question they have no answer to. They usually at this point they start to speak nonsense. Then Srila Jiva Goswami gives another argument to counteract this. He says that if when you look at the rope and experience a snake, that means you must have seen the snake before. Otherwise, by looking at the rope, you could not, what's the term, overexpose, no, what's the term? Overimpose. If you have not had experience of a snake, you could not possibly overimpose image of a snake over the rope. So if that's true what Mahabharata say, that means that the Brahman must have had the experience of illusion before. How can that be? So anyway, this goes back and forth, doesn't it? I didn't want to go too much into it, but typically the devotees don't know the meaning of the example of the rope and the snake and what actually Mahabharata say. Mahabharata is literally saying that this whole world is illusion. It's a hallucination of Brahman. That Brahman hallucinates, and in its own mind, Brahman experiences material world, but material world doesn't exist. That's why Jagan Mithya. The Brahman is true, it does exist, and the world does not exist. The world is just a hallucination in the mind of Brahman. But Brahman's Jnana Swarup, how can Brahman be an illusion? What are you people talking about? Where did you find that in the Shastra? Like nowhere in the Shastra do you find any such statement. That Brahman's an illusion. This is the speculation by Shankaracharya. Nowhere in the Shastra is this stated. So, at the end of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, So 15:16. Vaimau purusha loke kshara cha akshara eva cha. This is very important in terms of Mayavad, understanding Mayavad philosophy. Bhagavad Gita is a Shastra. And Bhagavad Gita says there are two types of beings. There are the Kshara and the Akshara beings. So there are the conditioned beings and there are the eternally liberated beings. Kshara sarvani bhutani kutasto akshara uchate. Prabhupada translates. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living being is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. So right here, this is a big problem for the Mayavad philosopher. Because Mayavad philosopher says that in the material existence doesn't exist. That's a hallucination of Brahman. And so when Brahman hallucinates, Brahman sort of experiences multiplicity. You are Brahman, she's Brahman, he's Brahman, I'm Brahman. But we're all Brahman's hallucinating, so the Brahman experiences myself, Brahman experiences himself independently. It's a stupid thing, it's really stupid. But anyhow, this is what they say. And so in this way, Brahman individually hallucinates. But the Bhagavad Gita here says, wait a second, Vaima lokesmin, kshara akshara evacha. There are two types of living beings. There are beings who are in illusion, and there are beings who are not in illusion. And they exist at the same time. And then the next verse says, Uttama purushastvanya paramet yudahritaha. Yo lokam traya avishya. Anyhow, I'll just read the translation for you. Besides these two, so there's two types of living beings. Beings who are in illusion, and Mayavadi will say that's Brahman who's in illusion. And then you have beings who are not in illusion. But then besides these two, then there is another person. There's another person, and that's a supreme person. The imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. And so this means, according to Bhagavad Gita Shastra, that the two worlds exist at the same time. First of all, they're real, and they're two living entities, those who are in illusion and those who are not. And besides both of them, there is still yet another being, supreme being. That means there's eternal duality. There is God and there are living entities. They're not one, they're separate. It's not that when Brahman's in illusion, Brahman hallucinates about multiplicity. Then when he's not in illusion, that emerges back into Brahman. No, there's a supreme person who exists all the time, and within exist living entities who are not in illusion, and at the same time exist living entities who are in illusion. This is Shastra, and it's not one of those Prabhupada translations. If you look they say Prabhupada translations where Prabhupada kind of stretches the meaning of the Sanskritam. No, it's straight there in the Sanskritam. Uttama purusha stvanya tu anya. Anya has not. Anya, with these other beings, so there are these two beings, Anya. Beside them, there is Uttama Purusha. At the same time, it's not that they're all one. So this is a big problem for the Mayavadis. Mayavadis are demons in the sense, and we shall see there, because this is the conclusion of the 15th chapter. So 15th chapter is called the Purushottama Yoga, or the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And at the end of this chapter, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, says that there are conditioned souls, there are liberated souls, and then there is me. It's not that there is oneness. There are these three beings. And then it says, at the end, the last verse says, this is the most confidential part of Vedic knowledge. Actually, before that says, whoever knows me as Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. And again, this is straight from the Sanskrit. This is not Prabhupada's speculation or wrong translation of, as some people say sometimes about Prabhupada. It's straight from the Sanskrit. Anyone who knows a little bit of Sanskrit, because Sanskrit in the Bhagavad Gita is very simple, even I learned it. Yomam eva asammudo. So those who are not, muda means confused. Those who are not confused. Janati purushottama. Sasarva vid. So those who know, who are not confused, and therefore know purushottama, supreme person. Sasarva vid. They know everything. And what do they then do? Bhajati mam. They worship me. This destroys any concept of Maya. It's interesting how Shankaracharya did not comment on so many verses of Bhagavad Gita, because how could he? Sarva bhavena bharata. And this is so in all respects, in all places, in all types of circumstances, in all types of existence. It's like very emphatic, not just a slight statement, but says it clearly, says it more clearly, and then Krishna emphasizes it. It's so clear. And then the last verse of the 15th chapter says that iti guyantamam shastram, of all of the shastra, this is the secret. This is the secret in the sense, like this is the conclusion of the Shastra. Idam uktam, it is said to be Mayanagaha. This is the most confidential part of Vedic scriptures. O sinless one, that's Anaga, Arjuna's name. And it is disclosed now by me, uktam, Maya. I'm telling you this. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Etam bhutva buddhiman. By knowing this, one becomes buddhiman. Buddhi means intelligence. One becomes intelligent. Prabhupada says wise. Krita krityaha. Prabhupada translates that as the most perfect in his endeavors. Kritya means that he has done everything. He's done the deed. He has done the deed. Perfect in all endeavors. In other words, he has completed everything that has to be done. This is how more emphatic can this be? How more clear can this be? Can you say this clearer than this? It's really, really loud. So there are two types of beings. Liberated beings who live in the spiritual world, in the reality of Brahman, and that there are beings who are in illusion and they live in this material world. And beside two of them, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Knowing this is to know the ultimate secret of the Vedic scripture. Scriptures, if you want to put it in plural. And then he concludes that whoever knows this should worship me. And then he says that this is worshiping Krishna, right? So there is the duality. Krishna is big, we're small, we worship Krishna. And then he says this is the secret of all, ultimate secret of all Vedic scriptures. This is it, and this is the conclusion of the 15th chapter, or Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Purusha Uttama. Again, Purusha Uttama. That means there are Purushas who are not Uttama. Uttama means up, all the way up. That means that there are Purushas or persons who are not Uttama. And this is the conclusion of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is what's the topic of the 15th chapter? Does anyone know? The topic of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is entanglement of the soul and disentanglement of the soul from illusion. Entanglement of the soul in illusion and disentanglement of the soul from illusion. And the chapter begins with a description of a banyan tree as an analogy, as an example, an analogy to portray, illustrate the situation of this material world and how the soul gets implicated, entangled in this world, in the branches of the tree of banyan. And how this tree has to be cut with the acts of detachment. Like, detachment means I don't care about this world. I care about spiritual world. And then Krishna describes him, because then he says, once you have cut this, then you need to find what? Once you have cut the banyan tree of material existence, what do you need to find? Does anyone remember? Something has to be found. One has to find the root of this tree, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and take shelter there, surrender there. And then Krishna, for the rest of the chapter, describes him, the person to whom one should surrender. That's what this is called Purushottama Yoga. Then he concludes the chapter by describing the two types of souls, describing the spiritual world, describing himself as eternally separated being from all these two beings, and that those who know this know everything, and therefore they worship Krishna. And this is the greatest secret, the conclusion of all of the Vedic Shastras. That's Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. And then begins the 16th chapter, which is called Divine and Demonic Natures. And what is the quality of a demon? What is the quality of a demon? The quality of a demon that is not astika. Asti literally means there is. What is there? God and soul. And the demon is a person who does not believe that. That is a demon. And very specifically, demon is a person who does not, who disregards ashastra vidimutsrija vartante kama karata. Demon is a person who who rejects the instruction of the Shastra, which is the instruction of God. Krishna can be understood, perceived, followed, obeyed, worshipped by the injunctions of Vedic scripture. And if you apply yourself to it, you will have had experience of God and yourself in relationship to Krishna. And so, Shastra Vidimutsrija, that's the first thing, they reject Shastra. That's the first and very important demonic quality. They reject Shastra, and then what? What's the next one? Vartante Kama Karata. They act the way they want to act, Kama, upon their own desire. Person does not want to be guided by God, does not want to be guided by scripture. And when you say this in America, people get upset for you for saying something like this, because the religion of the modern world, which is headed up by America, the religion is Kama Karata. I do what I want to do. I do what I want to do. But then, na sasidim avapnotim, na sukham, na param gatim. By this process, you cannot obtain happiness, and that's darn obvious. Anyone with half a brain functioning can see this. But brain does not function when it's covered by karma, when it's soaking in karma. And so this is the nature of the demons, right? And if you read the description, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance, these qualities belong to those of demonic nature. Transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas demonic qualities make for bondage. And it's true, anyone who has practiced, anyone who has put Krishna's instructions to practice, can see that this is liberating. It is literally liberating. You experience freedom, you experience satisfaction. It is literally liberating, and it is liberating even in the ultimate sense that you're taken out of this world. You're taken out of this world while you're in the world. And then at the end, you're literally taken out of this world. Whereas the demonic qualities make up for bondage. Bind one in all kinds of ways, mentally, emotionally, intellectually. The person just becomes a pile of bound up mess. That's modern America. A third of it is medicated. And the other 2/3 should be medicated. Divorce, sex, enjoyment, sensual gratification, just insanity. Modern world. Why am I saying this? Because this is Hiranyaksha. God forbid that he would recognize there is God and that he would follow what God says. No, he wants to fight him. The guy is completely out of his mind. That's a demon. Now, Hiranyaksha is a fantastic demon, and most of us are just tiny little demons, in the sense that we're not so far out, but those of us who display demonic qualities. Also, Naprita, in this world, there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demonic. And now I shall tell you about the demonic. Those who are demonic do not know what is to be done, what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. They say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire, or we could say here says, Kimanyat kama haitukam, that the reason for this world is kama, is for me to enjoy. The reason for this, they don't think that the reason for this world is for you to learn to be pure, to be self-controlled, to sacrifice, to live for service. No, this world exists for kama, for enjoyment. This is the religion of the modern men. And if you say anything against it, you're up for a battle. You're going to get ridiculed, you're going to get attacked. Maybe not physically, people are civilized enough, but sometimes even physically. This is the... That's why Prabhupada wrote that. Actually, it was, I think it was Brahmananda's mother. Brahmananda joined Srila Prabhupada, and he was of a Jewish family, and it's not that Jewish tradition teaches this, but some other Jews tend to be very, very cohesive, like internally very cohesive, and they value Jewish life more than non-Jewish life. For example, I just uttered the word in Croatian. Naprimjer means, for example. I don't know where did that come from. If Jewish boy is allowed to socially, not always, but among certain Jewish communities, is allowed to have sexual relationship with non-Jewish girls, but not with Jewish girls. Don't pollute the Jewish girls. You're going to pollute non-Jewish girls, which is a horrible attitude. Anyhow. But so Brahmananda joined Srila Prabhupada, and then Brahmananda's mother was very upset, a Jewish mother. You're taking my son away from my Jewish tradition to not only from a Jew, but from me. What is this? And she sent his brother to go fetch him, bring him back. And then, what's his brother's name? I forget now. Brahmananda and Garga Muni. Garga Muni. Prabhupada called him Garga Mani because he was good at business. joking before I was lovingly made that joke, calling him Garga Mani. So I don't know their legal names. They weren't initiated at the time. So Garga Muni went to get Brahmananda, and he met Brahmananda, and Brahmananda told him why he joined Prabhupada. So he decided to stay too. So mom became quite upset. So then she went to get him. And in that conversation, Prabhupada told her, sorry man, you think we're crazy, but in all honesty, we think you are crazy. So now the question is, who is crazy? At the end, she was charmed by Srila Prabhupada. She was charmed by Srila Prabhupada, and then, and she was okay with it all. I mean, she wasn't, but kind of, she agreed, okay, what can I say, my sons chose this, it's not that bad, okay. And then before she would left, Prabhupada asked her to give a donation. There were monks, there were beggars, please give a donation. I don't remember. I think she said, I already gave you 2 of my sons. I would have to go back to Prabhupada Lilamrita, or wherever that was written. I read this a long time ago. Also, that's how Prabhupada got the Detroit mansion. He asked the woman who was selling it. They spent a lot of time showing a great deal of attention to the mansion. And Prabhupada said, it's wonderful, we really want it. We really want it. Oh, it's so beautiful. And the real estate agent came and with the owner took him around and had few appointments. And then at the last meeting, Srila Prabhupada said many times how much they wanted. And then he said, you know, we're monks, we're beggars, could you please just give it to us? The real estate agent nearly had a heart attack. It's a mansion, it's not even a house, it's a mansion, it's humongous. God knows what's the value of it. And the woman somewhere other stayed sober and gave the mansion to devotees at a symbolic price, like really, really tiny price, and, which was still a lot of money. And then Prabhupada just gathered money from some of his disciples because Ambarish Prabhu, who's the great grandson of Mr. Ford, the person who started the Ford company that makes vehicles, and then also the granddaughter of what's the other? I forget the other automobile American company. Their granddaughter was also Prabhupada's disciple, and then Prabhupada asked them if they could scrape up some money. And like this, Prabhupada asked around and got the money, and they purchased the mansion, and Prabhupada left, sold the deities and left. Which is Prabhupada said no need to bow down to the deities during the class. Prabhupada also never sang Jai this and that, and Prabhupada and Jai, all the deities at the end of Kirtan, which devotees do all the time. I mean, it's not wrong, but Prabhupada never did it, for example. I would just chant Hare Krishna and we just stop. Would sing Jai anything at the end. Anyhow, just a little info. Typically devotees sing Jai and then everyone on the altar, and then plus some more, and then they return Jai a little more of Gornitai, and then Prabhupada never did it. There's no kirtan where Prabhupada did them. It's just Prabhupada would offer pranam mantras to the Guru, then Gauranga and Panchatattva, and then he would just sing Hare Krishna, and then he would just stop. anyhow, so this is the quality of a divine person, that he just got in a mansion, and he gave it all to Krishna, established the worship of Krishna, and then continued travel with the small 2 suitcases, one small suitcase for his cloth, and Prabhupada just traveled with 4 sets of cloth. That's it. I also traveled with 4 sets. It's kind of perfect. More than that, it's just trouble. And yeah, for a while I traveled with 3, but then sometimes when you travel, you can't wash one every day and have it dried. So, because sometimes you find yourself for 2 or 3 days on the road without being, you have to be in one place for at least 2 days to have your cloth washed and dried. And then sometimes you don't have that, so then you have to have the 4th set in case you find yourself in that kind of situation. And probably with these 4 sets of clothes just went on. He had the other briefcase where he had documents, like passports and some ISKCON documents and letters, and that's what Prabhupada traveled with. An old man with 2 small suitcases. One was a suitcase, then was a briefcase. That's it. That's how Prabhupada lived. And when someone would give something, he would graciously accept it, use it for a few days, and then give it away. Gold watches, clothes. That's a divine person, kept nothing for himself, understanding that everything is meant for Krishna's service. Unlike this demon Hiranyaksha here. He wants to conquer everything. Everything is his. He's going to beat everyone up. It's all his. He's going to demonstrate his superiority. No, Prabhupada thought himself a servant of a servant of a servant. Once Prabhupada gave a lecture in Melbourne, and he was speaking Australia, and students were quite violent. As a matter of fact, once Prabhupada had to be escorted out because students were getting physically violent. Just like nowadays, modern Americans, they just want to have sex. They want to free the nipples movement. Women want to walk around naked without exposing the breasts to public, etc., etc. So in Australia, like that, students were quite aggressive about their wants. And then there was Prabhupada, a conservative Vaishnava, who was telling them, conservative in a sense, control your senses. Senses are, it's interesting, in Vedic concept, senses are known as jnana indriya. These are the senses that come in contact with sense objects, are called jnana indriya. In other words, the purpose of these senses is to learn about the world. They're not kama indriya, they're jnana indriya. Senses are not meant for sense gratification, they're meant for learning. With the help of senses, we'll learn about the world. We'll learn ultimately even about Krishna. But to a demon or a materialist, senses are meant for sensual enjoyment. And so Prabhupada was giving a lecture and was speaking about Varnashrama and the classes of society, and students were getting really aggressive. What do you mean there are classes? There's upper and lower class. What do you think who you are? You are the topmost. Huh? And Prabhupada said, and then Prabhupada fell silent. There was a big silence. I was waiting to hear what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said, no, I'm 5th class. I'm the servant of everyone. And so seriously meant it that everyone there was no reaction. That's a Vaishnava. The social classes are not meant for domination. Demons want to dominate. Pure souls want to serve. And they consider themselves 5th class, below everyone. Unlike in India nowadays, Brahmins exploit Shudras. That's why Shudras massively are becoming Christians in South India. Brahmin should consider himself a servant of everyone. And that is the concept, that's the most basic concept of God in Vedic tradition. That the society is the body of God and everyone does their part to serve the rest of the society. So the head does its service, the legs does their service, the trunk does its service, hands do their service. Yes, head is more important than the legs, of course. We can live without legs, but we cannot live without the head. So head is more important, but it doesn't mean that the head thinks, yes, I dominate you. That's a demonic quality. The head is also thinking, I'm the servant. I serve the body by looking, by thinking, by deciding, making decisions. It's a question of service. But the demon thinks how to dominate. Then there are demons even in religious realms. They come to religious realms, so they want to, I want to be guru, I want to be the president, I want to be... They just want to dominate, not understanding that these are only opportunities for service. Anyhow, okay. Are there any questions or comments, perhaps? Yes.
Maharaj, when in the Puranas it is clearly mentioned that Shankaracharya was the incarnation of Lord Shiva and he had particular purpose which was given by the Lord himself, then what Mayavadi comment about it? I mean, it is clearly written, it's not some out of thought or out of imagination. So when it is written, so what Mayavadi comment about this?
Mayavadis do what American Mayavadis do. They say that as long as the words are used to support their point of view, as long as the words are used to support their point of view, then the words have value. And when the words begin to defeat their point of view, then they say, oh, it's just words. They literally say that. Nirvachaniya, how does that go? The Mayavadi is saying Nirvachaniya, something that cannot be Anirvachaniya. Cannot be described by words. That's why you don't understand, because it cannot be described by words. There should be.
I remember I heard that they use two words. That there's some verses which are pradhan and some verses which are inferior.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, the Srila Prabhupada discusses this in a commentary to a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya mentions two kinds of lakshana. There is the what's the Sanskritam? Direct and indirect lakshana. How does that go? Is this my phone making noise?
No.
So, I usually turn it off. I can't remember right now. But there was a discussion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the Mayavadis of Benares, because they asked him, "Can you then explain what do you think is the meaning of the sutras from Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra?" And then first, what Mahaprabhu said, that there's two ways of understanding Vedic statements: by the direct meaning, which is I forget now, something Lakshana, Priti Lakshana. Priti Lakshana Chora, how does that go? That too much devotion is a sign of a thief. That's what I'm thinking of.
Atil Bhakti Chora.
Atil Bhakti Chora Lakshana. Ati Bhakti. Too much Bhakti. As a sign of a rascal. Chira Ati. No, not that. It's also Lakshana, but I can't remember. I apologize. My brain's like that. It just sometimes doesn't want to remember. And then the moment we sit for prasadam, we'll remember. When under pressure, the mind tends to not remember. It just freezes. And like that, when someone asks me, what's the verse? There's no way I can remember. But if there's no pressure, then it all comes out. So Mahaprabhu said that there are two ways of understanding Vedic statements, by direct and indirect meaning. And he said, if the direct meaning makes sense, and it's in accord with the rest of the statements of the Vedic scripture, then it should be understood by its direct meaning. And if not, then it should be understood by its indirect meaning. Like, for example, house is on water. House is not on water. House is by the water. So that's the example, right? If the statement says house is on the water, then we see that the house is not on the water. Therefore, that means that house is not on the water, but by the water, on the bank, right? Like that. But if the house is literally on the water floating, then we should accept the statement by its direct meaning. So that's how Mayavadis, they write off many statements by saying that it's indirect meaning.
Pratyaksha or apratyaksha?
Pratyaksha.
Indirectly, apratyaksha indirectly.
Or apratyaksha. No, it's it'll come to me, you'll see.
Okay.
It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Mahaprabhu gives his mercy to Prakashananda Saraswati. How did they answer? I don't know. I didn't study all the Mayavadi arguments in details, but just the bulk of it.
But Maharaj, we also see that, we don't take Krishna's all instruction at the same level. For example, when Krishna talks about the Karma Kanda in the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that Krishna is not a superior statement of Krishna or some other than talk about other Gyana, but when he's talking about
but Krishna puts it all in perspective. But Krishna puts it, in no point does Krishna speak of Karma Kanda as the ultimate. Krishna puts it all in. There's reason why Bhagavad Gita is by far the most important, historically speaking. Just historically speaking, how come Bhagavad Gita has become such an important text? Because it's a synthetic work. Synthetic means that it synthesizes. It puts in perspective everything, the whole Vedic concept and everything, especially in those days, that was going on in that part of the world. Like different philosophies, Krishna weaves them all together, but in such a way that it puts them all in perspective with a conclusion. So here he's speaking, Karma Kanda also has its place. But Krishna doesn't in no point does Krishna make a statement that Karma Kanda is the ultimate, which is what Mayavadis do. They said that the Mayavad understanding is the ultimate. But how do you then explain other statements like the one from Bhagavad Gita, end of the 15th chapter? They just don't comment on it. Okay. One last thing, perhaps, if there is. Very well. Oops. Yes.
One thing. It's a foolish question, but I still am doing. God facilitated everything, all senses and gratification object also. And then gratifying the senses, why is why is not allowed? Everything is there. Food is there and hunger is there. Still, if you have, and you will be better. So, no, why is it so?
We as Vaishnavas, we have nothing against different media such as movies, but most of the movies are just utterly bad. And so we typically don't recommend people to watch movies. But there was an interesting movie many years ago, and I don't recommend watching it. It was just... Anyhow, devotees insisted that I see it, and so I saw it, but afterwards I concluded there was really no point in me seeing that movie anyway. But it's called Devil's Advocate. And the devil makes the same argument in the movie. Makes the same argument. Well, the God gave the senses, and there are the sense objects, and they attract each other. Chaktusanas asked this of Lord Brahma. They said that the senses are always seeking, naturally seeking sense objects, and the sense objects are always offering themselves to the senses. There's no point in which eyes are not seeing. There's no point in which ears are not hearing. There's no point in which skin is not having a tactile experience, and so on. So the senses are always in contact with sense objects. But that doesn't mean that the senses are meant for sense gratification. Excuse me, I have to correct myself. Actually, sense gratification is natural. And we as devotees, we also sense gratify. Like Prabhupada went on a morning walk. Why? Because it's pleasing to the senses. Senses need to receive certain amount of sense gratification to exist. Otherwise, if senses are not gratified, they fall apart. Like you lose health, for example. The mind, for example, cannot be twisted in pain. The mind has to feel happy. Otherwise, you need a doctor. So the senses require sense gratification. But when we speak of sense gratification, we speak of unnecessary sense gratification. Because we as devotees, we live for the love of God, for the service of Krishna. And we engage in sense gratification just so that the body can remain functioning, so that we can use the body to serve Krishna. And everything beyond that is unnecessary sense gratification. So, to go back to your postulation, if you say that God created senses and God created sense objects, God created hunger and food, but God also created Shastra. Why would you, if you say that God created senses and sense objects, why don't you accept the fact that God created Shastra also, which tells you not to sense gratify? So that senses are meant for elevation of consciousness. They're meant to serve, for serving Krishna. And then we're happy. We're literally, heart is filled with love. That's a happy person. And when the heart is filled with kama, then that's another thing stated in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that those who think that the life is meant for kama, they constantly live in anxiety. They constantly live in anxiety. We see Hiranyaksha, why did he have to go around fighting? It's a form of anxiety. So neither sense gratification, it's not good, it's not healthy, and it's not recommended by God. And that's why it's sinful. Because you see, sinful just means that it's contradicting the nature. It's contradicting the nature. It's not that God will personally come and punish you. It's like stomach. Stomach is meant to digest organic food. And if you eat plastic bags, you're going to have tummy ache. That's a funny term. You're going to have stomach ache. And you can complain as much as you want to and take whatever medicine you want to, but you have to stop eating plastic bags. Otherwise, you'll be in pain. You'll die eventually. So like that, sinful just means it's contrary to nature. And so therefore we suffer. And if it's a moral choice, then we also suffer on many other subtle levels and are literally punished for it, for having made bad moral choices. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.